Hey everybody, it's Jason.What here, and once again it is time for the Q&A, so let me get my hat on, and let's get to the first question. Alright. Hey Jason, what muscle and strength gains can someone with about a year of proper training expect to get when on maintenance calories, given that they're on a proper program course? Maintenance calories, if you're just maintaining and you're basically trying to recomposition, and you've already finished your noob gains, expect your gains to come very, very slowly. There's a reason people bulk and cut. It's simply faster. It's simply faster. Now, for some people, though, they're not happy with doing that. So what you're doing by saying, I'm going to just focus on recomposition over time, meaning purely lean gains, zero fat gain, and hopefully a little bit of fat loss. Because if you maintain on maintenance calories and you gain 3 pounds of muscle, you'll have to lose 3 pounds of fat. This is the slowest method to go. Like, you should expect the slowest possible gains even on the best of programs. And the best of programs, when you're at maintenance calories, you will need to pay attention to maximum recoverable fatigue. Meaning your goal shouldn't ever be to really stimulate maximum muscle growth because you're not going to see maximum muscle growth. You should be focused on basically hitting at least your minimum volume that you need to get bigger and stronger, while keeping your total workload and tonnage in check so that you can avoid excessive overreaching, things like that. Again, most overreaching style models usually work best with overreaching, underreaching, to where you push beyond your recovery ability and then back down. Works best when you're gaining weight. So you're not going to do that at maintenance calories. Now, that being said, the upside you have of this is that you're never going to technically have to worry about regression. You're not going to have to worry about looking worse, because basically you'll make continual progress and improvements this way, but it will be very, very slow. And I can't give you exact numbers, but expect to gain muscle at maybe half or a third of the rate that you would be gaining it otherwise. So normally, like a second-year lifter, you know what, probably 7 or 8 pounds of muscle is usually reasonable for a second-year lifter, drug-free, assuming you gained about 15 or so the first year. So expect half of that. Expect to gain 3 or 4 pounds of muscle and lose 3 or 4 pounds of fat over the course of a year. Expect all your lifts to go up a little bit, but you're not going to go from hitting early intermediate, which is where you should be at a year. It could take you a couple of years to get advanced. If you're going to do this method, it could take several years for you to reach the advanced stage of training. So that's pretty much what you should expect from all of it. All right, next question. Can you do a video about cortisol and stalling weight loss? Why would cortisol stall weight loss? Other than water retention. And that's what we need to understand. People try to pretend like cortisol is always a negative thing. Cortisol absolutely does not stall fat loss, and that's a point that needs to be made. Cortisol, when chronically elevated, can cause muscle loss. That's the concern. All right, that's our concern with chronically elevated cortisol levels, and cortisol does go up from dieting. Long-term dieting will elevate cortisol. It can also cause some water retention. But that's also one of your body's adaptation things, meaning a lot of times when people are losing weight, they'll go periods of time to where the scale doesn't go down, but they're in a caloric deficit. That's cortisol playing a role, because what your body does, that extra inflammation from it, causes additional fluid retention. And part of that is, again, your body trying to reach homeostasis, because you've taken tissue out and it's going to try to hold on to water to maintain that balance. And so sometimes you will sit at the same body weight for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, when you know that you're at least in a small calorie deficit. And then it will swoosh and you'll lose 3, 4, 5 pounds sometimes within 24 hours. And that's just the way it works. And as long as you know that you're in a caloric deficit, you can't worry about stuff like that. But cortisol itself, there are myths that cortisol causes fat gain. Cortisol causes tissue loss, usually. Elevated cortisol usually breaks down tissue proteins for fuel to get glucose, and it will actually speed up sometimes the release of fatty acids from your fat tissue. Cortisol kind of breaks tissue down to some extent in that way, and that's a lot of what it does as a stress hormone. And I know that's a very simplistic explanation, but again, this idea, this myth out there that cortisol stops fat loss or causes fat gain is not based on reality. It doesn't do that in the body. But what you may be seeing from the cortisol is your body trying to reach a state of homeostasis, and that's part of the process to maintain weight when your body is like, okay, we're losing it a little too fast, I need to hold on to some extra fluid for a little while. And that's all it is. And it's not a bad thing. People will say, oh, well, I want to get rid of that fluid loss, so I'm going to do this. It's like, don't do things to mess with it. Your body will swoosh that off eventually, and if you try to do things to make it drop water faster, it's going to rebound and re-put water back on you even more so afterwards. So don't go, well, I'm going to use a diuretic or something just because you're hitting a stall in your weight loss due to water retention. It will balance out on its own. Just be consistent. All right, next question. I'm running your 2 times a week full body program. On the chin-ups, I was able to get all the way up to 6 reps with a 25-pound dumbbell. The following workout I failed, and when the workout following that, after lowering the weight by 5 pounds, I failed again. Tomorrow I'm scheduled to hit 5 reps with a mere 15-pound dumbbell instead, since the program calls for me to lower the weight once more. Is this digression okay as long as everything else is still properly progressing normally? I assume the digression is due to the shift in body weight since I gained 10 pounds of water in the first few weeks. I was cutting before, and I started this program / bulk. Yeah, that's normal. You gained weight. And if your other lifts are going up, you know you're not losing muscle and you're not losing strength. All right, when you're dealing with big body weight movements like that, to where you're doing weighted body weight movements, that's going to happen, and it will be very dependent upon shifts in body weight. Furthermore, you are doing other back work and things in there, so you are going to have a certain amount of fatigue. And like I've said, as long as your other lifts are going up, and the scale has gone up, I wouldn't count that as a loss. I would count it as a little bit of a plateau. It's a stall. Because if you've gained 10 pounds and you've had to reduce 10 pounds on your weighted chin-ups, you're lifting the same weight. And that's the best way to look at it. And that's the healthy way to look at it and not freak out about it. You know, just continue to move forward and take your time. And the thing that you need to remember, when we're going to weighted chin-ups tend to progress very, very slowly. Particularly if you do it correctly and you're actually going all the way down and getting a full stretch at the bottom, you're pulling from a dead hang, they're going to progress very slow. But anytime you progress on them, it's going to pay off pretty handsomely because it's a very difficult exercise. Because it's an exercise that's difficult to increase over time, that little bit that you increase over time actually starts to really add up in terms of the amount of muscle and strength that it puts on you. Just don't get frustrated with weighted chin-ups. Go really, really slow, particularly if you've gained scale weight. That's just going to happen. It's normal. All right, next question. Hi, Jason. If you've been endlessly bulking after starting off very skinny, at what point specifically at what body fat percentage should you stop bulking and start cutting? At what point does increased body fat start giving you negative results such as preventing optimal muscle growth or inhibiting testosterone? All right. The latter stuff is simply not true. That's myths that bodybuilders create to justify them being lean all the time. Now, as far as what point should you start cutting, I can't tell you that. You need to decide how much body fat and body weight you are personally willing to put on in regards to your own self-image, your own self-esteem, your health, your athletic performance. There is no set answer. For one guy, it might be 14% body fat. For another guy, it might be 30%. That's a very individual question, but I'm assuming you're talking about the latter. Never. Never. If you look at the strongman competitors, world's strongest men, and you need to understand most of those guys have more muscle mass than most of your pro bodybuilders. They're massive. When you stand them next to them and realize just because they're not ripped, they don't look as big, but they are. They're bigger. Those guys oftentimes bulk forever. Do they ever stop gaining muscle? No. And this idea that because body fat goes up that your testosterone is going to go down significantly isn't true. There isn't some aromatase activity. Extra body fat can slightly increase aromatase activity, which is conversion of testosterone to estrogen. But let me put it to you this way. If 1% more of your testosterone gets converted to estrogen, that might be a significant amount of estrogen biologically, but that's not a significant amount of testosterone in a man. Meaning a 10% shift in your testosterone up or down will have zero measurable impact on muscle gain, fat loss, sex drive, aggression drive in the gym, a 10% shift will do literally nothing. It won't even be a blip on the radar. So minor shifts in the amount of testosterone that's converting into estrogen isn't going to affect your gains. And estrogen is also anabolic. It has a synergistic effect with testosterone for causing muscle growth and increasing muscle protein synthesis. So you're not going to lose any gains at all. The only issue becomes as nutrient partitioning increases, you might need more calories to continue to gain muscle. Leaner people, again, because they have less body fat to soak up extra calories and things, do tend to sometimes gain muscle on a bit fewer calories. You do get a slightly better nutrient partitioning effect. And the problem you get is that as you get fatter, you usually need to keep increasing calories further to gain muscle quickly, which makes you gain fat more quickly. But as we've noted before, people who have gained a lot of body fat have already bulked up, and they can slow cut and still sometimes make muscle mass gains, even when they're relatively advanced. It's just it won't be anywhere near as fast as if they continue to gain weight. So again, your question is kind of based upon a little bit of myths out there. It's not that you will ever see a reduction in muscle gains or muscle growth from gaining body fat. It's that there's unwanted complications with it, unwanted side effects. And those side effects could be that maybe you don't like the way you look, maybe your strength to weight ratio is bad, maybe you have a worse WOOC score as a power lifter, you don't have the abs or the body that you want, maybe your endurance goes down because you can't run as far with the extra 10 pounds of body fat. Those are the negative side effects we need to be concerned about there as far as performance and everything else goes. Alright, next question. Hey Jason, can you recommend a basic program that will give me relatively a 100-pound times 5 weighted chin-up, a 275 incline bench without thinking about advanced types of program setups? I have stalled on linear progression 45 times 1 on chin-up and 190 for 5 on the incline bench, and looking for ways to get past these without thinking of periodization models. Are you a drug-free lifter? I'm just going to be honest with you. Full range of motion incline benching 275 for 5 reps and weighted chin-ups with 100 pounds, assuming you train legs and have a decent body weight. For 5 reps, you're going to need, if you're going to do this drug-free, you're going to need advanced styles of training. You're going to actually have to follow advanced programming models, unless you're very, 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 very genetically gifted in the strength department. These sort of numbers are way up there for drug-free lifters. You're talking about easily the top 1% of drug-free lifters at the ability to hit numbers like that. Again, a lot of guys, well, I know a guy who does it. Well, he's probably on drugs. Not saying this can't be done natural, but you're going to have to get your training on point. And if you set goals like this that are lofty goals, very, very difficult to reach goals for a drug-free person, don't also expect that you're going to be able to get away with very, very basic training models. You are going to have to use more advanced models. You're going to have to use some advanced periodization. These are very advanced goals. You're going to have to use advanced training. It would be totally different if you told me, 225 for 5 incline bench. Okay, you could probably get there just using some basic block periodization. Or you could even get there with linear progression if you just do it slow enough. But when we start talking a 275 for 5 incline, particularly if you're touching the chest, numbers like that, you're going to need advanced training. You're going to have to look into some various block periodization and things like that. You're going to have to use some modern periodization methods if you really want to reach that, unless you plan on bulking up and getting really, really, really fat, or you plan on using drugs. If you plan on staying at a reasonable body weight, reasonable body fat, you're going to have to use advanced methods. Sorry, there's no way around that. All right, next question. Any reason a night of drinking could improve performance the next day? Almost all of my best deadlift PRs have come after a night of drinking many shots of whiskey. I take about 400 milligrams of caffeine before my workout, and it almost seems like my stimulants hit me harder the day after I drink. Stimulants might hit you harder the day after you drink. But that's probably not going to be the reason for all your PRs. The reason for your PRs, alcohol contains calories. Alcohol is a fantastic fuel source. So when you're out drinking, your body tends to burn alcohol as basically a high-powered fuel source, and it starts storing everything else that you eat. Alright, so if you're storing other stuff that you ate, some of it's not necessarily all going to be body fat. It's going to be intermuscular glycogen. It's going to be intermuscular triglycerides. You're going to end up with fuller muscles as a result of it because you've given your body a large amount of fuel. This is no different than if a person were to consume a massive amount of carbs a night before doing a PR. It's the same concept, really, as long as you've had other carbs and foods with it that you're absorbing so that the alcohol is being burned for fuel and other stuff's being stored. You're just storing fuel. You're filling your muscles with glycogen, triglycerides, everything else, and you're giving yourself a leverage advantage due to fuller muscles. And you have to remember, alcohol itself is a very solid performance fuel source. It's just that it's not healthy to consume in excess, which is the problem with it. But it doesn't impede athletic ability. In fact, alcohol is a known PED. It's a known PED, and that's recognized in sports sciences, and that's recognized by even doping agencies and stuff. They don't want you to be out there drinking much alcohol when you compete in various sports. It's a performance-enhancing drug. So that's what's going on there. Hopefully that explains it a lot better. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.